Here's the shocking truth. Strength doesn't always feel like strength. Sometimes it feels like pain, loneliness, and struggle. But if you notice these 7 signs, you'll realize you're far stronger than you ever thought. Right now, there are millions of people walking this earth who see themselves as weak, broken, or not good enough. They look in the mirror and focus on their flaws. They replay their mistakes on endless loop. They compare their behind-the-scenes struggles to everyone else's highlight reel. But here's what they don't realize. The very things they see as weaknesses are proof of their incredible strength. The struggles they're ashamed of are evidence of their resilience. The pain they're trying to hide is testimony to their courage. You might be one of those people. You might be reading this right now thinking you're not strong enough, not brave enough, not capable enough. But what if I told you that you're completely wrong about yourself? What if the evidence of your strength has been hiding in plain sight all along? Hey there, hidden warrior. Within the next 39 minutes, you're going to discover 7 signs that prove you possess a kind of strength that most people never develop in their entire lifetime. And I promise you this, by the end of this video, you'll never look at your struggles the same way again. Because what you've been calling weakness, I'm going to show you as power. What you've been calling failure, I'm going to prove is growth. What you've been calling brokenness, I'm going to reveal is breakthrough. Here's what nobody tells you about real strength. It's not about never falling. It's about getting back up every time you do. It's not about never feeling pain. It's about continuing to love despite being hurt. It's not about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions, even when you're afraid of the answers. But here's the truth that motivational speakers won't tell you. Recognizing your own strength is often the hardest thing you'll ever do. Because society has taught you to focus on what's wrong with you instead of what's right with you. 2 months ago, I received a letter that broke my heart and inspired me at the same time. Victoria, a 31-year-old social worker from Portland, wrote to me feeling completely defeated. She said, "I help other people overcome their problems all day long, but I can't seem to fix my own life. I've been through a terrible divorce that left me financially struggling and emotionally shattered. I'm raising 2 kids as a single mom while working full-time in a demanding job that pays barely enough to cover our basic needs. I have anxiety that keeps me awake at night worrying about everything that could go wrong. I cry in my car after dropping the kids off at school because I feel like I'm failing them. I look at other parents who seem to have it all together and wonder what's wrong with me. I feel weak, broken, and like I'm barely holding on most days. Everyone tells me I'm strong, but I don't feel strong at all. I feel like I'm one crisis away from completely falling apart. How can I be strong when I feel so fragile?" But wait, Victoria's story reveals something profound that she couldn't see about herself. Victoria isn't unusual in feeling weak while demonstrating extraordinary strength. Recent psychological research from the University of Michigan shows that 84% of people who exhibit exceptional resilience don't recognize their own strength while they're in the middle of challenging circumstances. That means if you're watching this while going through a difficult time, you're probably blind to your own power. But here's where Victoria's story becomes inspiring. After she learned to recognize the 7 signs I'm about to share with you, she sent me another letter 12 weeks later. She said, "I'm still a single mom. I still have the same job and the same financial pressures. I still deal with anxiety sometimes, but everything feels different now because I finally understand what strength looks like. I realize that getting up every morning despite feeling exhausted is strength. I understand that feeling my emotions instead of numbing them is courage. I see that asking for help when I need it is wisdom, not weakness. I recognize that every day I choose love over bitterness after my divorce is a victory. I'm not weak at all. I'm one of the strongest people I know. I just never learned how to see it. You know what? The same revelation is waiting for you, and I'm going to prove it to you right now. But first, let me destroy the biggest lie about what strength looks like. Most people think strength means never struggling, never doubting yourself, never feeling overwhelmed or afraid. They think strong people wake up confident, handle every challenge with ease, and never question their abilities. But the truth will completely change how you see both strength and you. Real strength isn't the absence of struggle. Real strength is choosing to keep going despite the struggle. Real strength isn't fearlessness. Real strength is feeling afraid and acting anyway. Real strength doesn't have all the answers. Real strength is staying curious and continuing to grow even when growth is painful. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Imagine two people facing the same devastating life event, losing a job they loved after 10 years. Person A puts on a brave face, tells everyone they're fine, never admits they're scared, and pretends the job loss doesn't affect them. They avoid dealing with their emotions and refuse help from others because they think needing support makes them weak. Person B acknowledges they're terrified about the future, allows them to grieve the loss, reaches out for support from friends and family, and admits they don't have all the answers but are willing to figure it out one step at a time. Most people would look at person A and think, now that's strength. They're handling this crisis like champions. Most people would look at person B and think they seem pretty fragile and dependent on others. But here's the truth that changes everything. Person A is performing strength, not embodying it. They're so afraid of appearing weak that they're making themselves weaker by cutting themselves off from their emotions, their support systems, and their ability to process and learn from difficult experiences. Person B is demonstrating real strength. They're brave enough to feel their feelings. They're secure enough to ask for help. They're wise enough to know that avoiding pain doesn't make it go away, it just makes it last longer. 6 months later, person A is still stuck in denial and bitterness, unable to move forward because they never processed what happened to them. Person B has not only found a new job, but has used the experience to clarify their values, strengthen their relationships, and develop resilience they didn't know they possessed. Same crisis. Completely different outcomes. The difference was understanding what strength looks like. Here's the part that will change everything for you. You've been demonstrating real strength in ways you don't even recognize. Every day, in small and large ways, you're proving your incredible resilience. But you can't see it because you've been looking for the wrong signs. Wait, it gets even more incredible. Neuroscientists at Stanford University published groundbreaking research in 2024 about what they call invisible resilience. They found that people who have overcome significant challenges develop neural pathways associated with emotional regulation, problem solving, and stress management that are measurably stronger than people who haven't faced adversity. In other words, your struggles have literally rewired your brain to make you more capable of handling future challenges. Your pain has been building your power, even when you couldn't feel it happening. Think about that for a moment. Every difficult thing you've survived has made you stronger. Every setback you've overcome has increased your capacity for resilience. Every time you felt broken and found a way to keep going, you've been developing superpowers you don't even know you have. This is why these 7 signs are so important to recognize. They help you see the strength that's been there all along. Now, let me tell you about Benj. Benj was a 5-year-old graduate student who battled severe depression and anxiety throughout college. He felt like everyone around him had figured out life while he was constantly struggling just to get through each day. He saw his mental health challenges as proof that he was weak and broken. He was ashamed of his therapy appointments, embarrassed by his medication, and convinced that needing help meant he was failing at life. He told me, "I watch my classmates seem so confident and put together, and I feel like there's something fundamentally wrong with me. I can barely manage to get out of bed some mornings." How is that strength? Does this sound familiar? Benj was making the same mistake that millions of people made. He was comparing his internal struggles to other people's external appearances. He was judging his strength by how easy things felt, rather than by how he responded to difficulty. He was measuring himself against an impossible standard of effortless success. Then, Benj learned to recognize the first sign of hidden strength, and his entire self-perception has transformed. Pause this video right now. I want you to think about something difficult you've been dealing with lately. Maybe it's a relationship challenge. Maybe it's financial stress. Maybe it's health issues. Maybe it's career uncertainty. Maybe it's family problems. Whatever it is, notice how you typically think about yourself in relation to this challenge. Do you focus on how hard it is for you? Do you compare yourself to people who seem to handle similar things more easily? Do you see your struggle as evidence of weakness? If so, you're about to learn a completely different way to interpret your experience. Here's the first sign that you're stronger than you think, and it's hiding in your daily routine. Sign number 1. You keep showing up even when you don't feel like it. This might be the most underestimated form of strength in existence. Every day, when you get up, get dressed, and participate in your life despite feeling overwhelmed, anxious, depressed, or defeated, you are demonstrating extraordinary courage. Most people think strength means feeling motivated and energized to tackle challenges, but real strength is doing what needs to be done regardless of how you feel. It's going to work when you'd rather stay in bed. It's kind to your family when you're stressed about money. It's taking care of your responsibilities when your heart is broken. It's continuing to try when you've failed before. Victoria, the social worker I mentioned earlier, was doing this every single day without recognizing it as strength, getting her kids ready for school while battling anxiety, showing up for her clients while dealing with her own emotional pain, paying bills and grocery shopping while processing divorce trauma. She saw these as just getting by, but they were daily acts of heroism. Benj was doing this too, attending classes while fighting depression, completing assignments when his brain felt foggy, maintaining friendships when social anxiety made every interaction exhausting. He thought this made him weak, but it made him incredibly strong. When you consistently show up for your life despite internal struggles, you're building what psychologists call behavioral activation, the ability to take positive action even when your emotions are telling you to shut down. This is one of the most valuable life skills you can develop, and you're developing it every time you choose action over avoidance. Try this thought experiment. Imagine someone you admire dealing with your exact circumstances and responding exactly the way you've been responding. Would you think they were weak? Or would you be impressed by their resilience and determination? The strength you can't see in yourself becomes obvious when you imagine it in someone else. But there's an even more powerful sign of hidden strength that most people completely overlook. Let me tell you about sign number 2. You feel things deeply instead of numbing yourself. In a world that's constantly offering us ways to avoid difficult emotions, social media, entertainment, substances, shopping, overworking, choosing to feel your feelings is an act of incredible bravery. Most people spend enormous amounts of energy trying to escape pain, discomfort, fear, and sadness. But you're different. You might not realize it, but if you're someone who allows yourself to feel sad when something bad happens, anxious when facing uncertainty, or disappointed when things don't work out, you're demonstrating a form of strength that many people never develop. Let me tell you about Chloe. Chloe was a 8-year-old marketing professional who lost her father to cancer after a 2-year battle. For months after his death, she found herself crying at unexpected moments, during meetings, while grocery shopping, in the middle of conversations with friends. She was embarrassed by her emotional responses and frustrated that she couldn't move on faster. She compared herself to her older brother, who seemed to bounce back quickly and rarely mentioned their father's death. She thought her continued grief meant she was weak and couldn't handle loss properly. But here's what Chloe didn't understand. Her willingness to feel the full depth of her grief was a sign of exceptional emotional strength. Her brother wasn't stronger because he avoided his emotions. He was making his healing process more difficult and incomplete. Grief is love with nowhere to go. By allowing herself to feel it fully, Chloe was honoring her relationship with her father and processing the loss in a healthy way. This emotional courage, the willingness to feel pain instead of avoiding it, is what allows people to heal completely rather than just covering up wounds. When you feel your emotions instead of numbing them, you're demonstrating several forms of strength simultaneously. You're brave enough to experience discomfort without running away. You're wise enough to know that avoiding pain doesn't make it disappear. You're strong enough to trust that you can handle whatever you're feeling. You're committed enough to your own healing to do the difficult work of processing emotions. This is why people who feel deeply often become the most resilient and emotionally intelligent people you'll ever meet. They're not weak because they feel everything. They're strong because they're willing to feel everything. But here's sign number 3, and this one will surprise you. You ask for help when you need it. Most people think asking for help is a sign of weakness or failure. But here's the truth that changes everything. Asking for help requires more strength than struggling alone. It takes courage to admit you don't have all the answers. It takes humility to acknowledge that others might have wisdom you need. It takes trust to make yourself vulnerable to another person. It takes intelligence to recognize that collaboration creates better outcomes than isolation. Let me tell you about Isaiah. Isaiah was a 5-year-old small business owner whose restaurant was failing during economic uncertainty. For months, he tried to solve every problem himself. He worked 18-hour days, took on every responsibility, and refused to ask for help because he thought it would make him look incompetent. His pride was costing him his business and his health. Finally, out of desperation, Isaiah reached out to a business mentor, hired a consultant to help with finances, and started attending a support group for struggling entrepreneurs. At first, he felt like a failure for needing help. But here's what Isaiah discovered. The most successful business owners he met were the ones who had built strong networks of advisors, mentors, and collaborators. They didn't see asking for help as weakness. They saw it as strategic intelligence. Within 6 months, Isaiah had restructured his business model, improved his cash flow, and created systems that allowed him to work fewer hours while generating more revenue. Isaiah told me, "I thought asking for help meant I was failing. I learned that asking for help is how you succeed faster. This is why people who ask for help consistently outperform people who try to do everything alone. They access knowledge they don't have. They get emotional support that sustains them through challenges. They build relationships that create opportunities. They solve problems faster by leveraging other people's experience." If you're someone who reaches out when you're struggling, who asks questions when you're confused, who seeks support when you're overwhelmed, you're demonstrating wisdom and strength that many people never develop. You're strong enough to be vulnerable. You're secure enough to admit limitations. You're smart enough to use every resource available to you. Wait, it gets even more powerful. Let me tell you about sign number 4. You've survived things you thought would destroy you. This might be the most obvious sign of strength, yet it's the one people overlook most often. Right now, as you're reading this, you have a perfect track record of getting through difficult times. Every crisis you thought would break you, you survived. Every loss you thought you couldn't handle, you handled. Every challenge you thought was impossible, you found a way through. You might not have handled these situations perfectly. You might have made mistakes along the way. You might have felt weak and scared and uncertain, but you survived. And survival, especially repeated survival through multiple challenges, is proof of extraordinary strength. Let me tell you about Phoenix. Phoenix was a 29-year-old teacher who had endured childhood abuse, struggled through poverty as a young adult, battled addiction in her early 20s, and survived an abusive relationship that left her homeless for several months. By the time I met her, Phoenix was clean and sober, had her own apartment, and was successfully teaching middle school students. But Phoenix couldn't see her own strength. She focused on her mistakes, her trauma, and the ways she felt different from people who had easier lives. She saw herself as damaged and weak. But here's what Phoenix couldn't see about herself. Everything that had happened to her could have been a reason to give up. Most people who face even one of her challenges struggles to overcome it. Phoenix had faced multiple devastating challenges and not only survived them all, but used them as motivation to build a life dedicated to helping young people. She wasn't weak because she'd been through trauma. She was incredibly strong because she transformed her trauma into purpose. When Phoenix learned to see her survival as evidence of strength rather than evidence of damage, everything changed. She stopped apologizing for her past and started sharing her story as inspiration. She realized that her experiences had given her compassion, resilience, and wisdom that made her an exceptional teacher and mentor. Phoenix told me, "I spent so many years focusing on what happened to me that I forgot to notice what I did with what happened to me. When I finally saw my survival as strength, I realized I'm not a victim anymore. I'm a warrior." This is the reframe that changes everything. Your survival isn't just getting by, it's proof of your power. Your ability to keep going after being knocked down isn't ordinary, it's extraordinary. Your track record of getting through hard times isn't luck, it's evidence of your resilience. But here's sign number 5, and this one is about the most courageous thing you can do. You keep loving even after you've been hurt. This might be the purest form of strength that exists. After betrayal, abandonment, rejection, or loss, the natural protective response is to close your heart, to build walls, to stop trusting, to stop caring. And while this might feel safer, it makes you smaller and weaker over time. But if you're someone who continues to love, trust, and care for others even after you've been wounded, you're demonstrating a kind of courage that most people never develop. Let me tell you about River. River was a 3-year-old nurse who had been through a series of devastating relationship betrayals. Her first serious boyfriend cheated on her after 3 years together. Her marriage ended when she discovered her husband had been lying about finances and had accumulated secret debt. Her best friend turned out to be spreading rumors about her personal life. By the time River reached her 30s, she had every reason to become bitter, suspicious, and emotionally closed off. But River made a different choice. Despite her pain, she continued to show up fully in her relationships. She continued to trust people until they gave her specific reasons not to. She continued to be generous with her love and support. She continued to believe in the possibility of authentic connection. River's colleagues noticed something special about her. Patients felt safe opening up to her about their deepest fears. Friends sought her out when they needed someone they could trust completely. New people she met were drawn to her warmth and authenticity. River had developed what psychologists call earned security, the ability to remain open and loving despite having been hurt. This isn't naivety or weakness. This is sophisticated emotional intelligence and extraordinary courage, River told me. I realized that letting other people's choices make me smaller would mean they won twice. Once when they hurt me, and again when I let that hurt change who I am. I refuse to let anyone steal my capacity to love. When you continue to love after being hurt, you're demonstrating several forms of strength. You're choosing to hope over cynicism. You're choosing growth over protection. You're choosing to remain open despite risk. You're choosing to believe in goodness despite evidence of badness. This kind of love isn't weak. It's the strongest force in the universe. And if you possess it, you're stronger than you know. But here's sign number 6, and this one separates truly strong people from everyone else. You take responsibility for your part without taking responsibility for everything. This is one of the most sophisticated forms of emotional maturity and strength. It means you're secure enough to acknowledge your mistakes and shortcomings without being so insecure that you blame yourself for things outside your control. It means you can apologize when you're wrong without apologizing for existing. It means you can change what you can change and accept what you can't without confusing the two. This balance is incredibly difficult to maintain and requires enormous emotional strength. Let me tell you about Dakota. Dakota was a 26-year-old project manager who struggled with this balance for years. In her family, she had been the responsible one who tried to fix everyone's problems and keep peace at all costs. This pattern continued into her adult relationships and career. When anything went wrong, Dakota's first instinct was to figure out how it was her fault and what she could have done differently. When her team missed a deadline, she blamed herself for not managing them better. When her relationship ended, she assumed it was because she wasn't good enough. When her friend was upset about something unrelated to Dakota, she felt responsible for fixing their mood. But Dakota was also afraid of conflict and rarely spoke up about her own needs or boundaries. She took responsibility for everything, while taking responsibility for nothing that mattered to her own well-being. Then Dakota learned the difference between healthy responsibility and toxic responsibility. Healthy responsibility means owning your choices, actions, and responses. Toxic responsibility means owning other people's choices, actions, and responses. Dakota started practicing this distinction. When her team missed a deadline, she took responsibility for her part, not providing clear enough instructions, without taking responsibility for their part, not asking questions when they were confused. When conflicts arose, she took responsibility for communicating her needs clearly, without taking responsibility for how others responded to those needs. When people were upset, she offered support without assuming it was her job to fix their emotions. This shift transformed Dakota's relationships and career. She became more respected because she was more reliable in the areas that were her responsibility. She became happier because she stopped carrying weight that wasn't hers to carry. She became stronger because she was using her energy efficiently instead of scattering it across everyone else's problems. Dakota told me, learning the difference between what's mine to own and what's not mine to own was like putting down a backpack full of rocks I didn't know I was carrying. I had no idea how much lighter I could feel. If you're someone who can acknowledge your mistakes without drowning in shame, who can apologize when you're wrong without apologizing for who you are, who can change what you can change without trying to control what you can't, you possess a form of emotional strength that many people spend their entire lives trying to develop. And now we come to the final and most powerful sign of hidden strength. Sign number 7. You're still here, still trying, still believing something better is possible. This might sound simple, but it's the most profound form of content, strength that exists. In a world that often feels chaotic, unfair, and discouraging, choosing to remain engaged with life, to keep trying, to maintain hope for the future, is an act of extraordinary courage and faith. Every day you wake up and participate in your life is a victory over despair. Every time you set a goal, despite previous disappointments, is a triumph over cynicism. Every moment you treat yourself and others with kindness, despite living in a world that often lacks kindness, is a revolution of love. Let me tell you about Sage. Sage was a 42-year-old single parent who had faced an overwhelming series of challenges over several years. Job loss, health problems, financial stress, relationship difficulties, and family conflicts had left her feeling exhausted and defeated. There were many mornings when she questioned whether it was worth it to keep trying. There were moments when she wondered if life would ever feel good again. But every morning, Sage got up. Every day, she took care of her responsibilities. Every week, she tried something new to improve her situation. Every month, she found small reasons to hope. Sage wasn't living some inspiration poster version of resilience. She was living real, messy, imperfect, human resilience. She had bad days. She made mistakes. She sometimes felt sorry for herself. But she never gave up. And slowly, incrementally, things began to improve. Not because she positive thought her way out of real problems, but because she kept taking small, consistent actions toward the life she wanted. Sage found a new job that paid better and felt more meaningful. Her health issues stabilized with proper treatment and lifestyle changes. Her relationship with her teenage daughter deepened as they weathered difficulties together. She built a support network of friends who truly cared about her well-being. Most importantly, Sage rediscovered her own resilience and learned to trust herself to handle whatever life brought her way. Sage told me, "I used to think strength meant not struggling. Now, I know strength means continuing to show up even when you are struggling. Every day I choose to keep going is a day I prove to myself that I'm stronger than my circumstances. This is the ultimate sign of strength. You're still here. Despite everything you've been through, you're still participating in your life. Despite every disappointment, you still believe things can get better. Despite every setback, you still try again. This persistence, this refusal to give up on yourself and your future, this commitment to keeping going even when the path is unclear, this is the most powerful form of strength that exists. And if you possess it, you're already stronger than most people have ever become. Now, let me show you how these 7 signs work together to create what I call invisible resilience. When you consistently show up despite not feeling like it, you build discipline and reliability. When you feel your emotions instead of numbing them, you develop emotional intelligence and authentic strength. When you ask for help when you need it, you create support systems and accelerate your growth. When you recognize your survival as proof of strength, you build confidence in your ability to handle future challenges. When you continue loving despite being hurt, you maintain your capacity for connection and joy. When you take healthy responsibility, you develop personal power and emotional maturity. When you keep going despite setbacks, you prove to yourself that you're unstoppable. These signs don't just indicate strength, they create strength. Every time you recognize and appreciate these qualities in yourself, you reinforce neural pathways associated with resilience, self-compassion, and personal empowerment. Victoria learned to see her daily struggles as daily victories. Benj learned to interpret his mental health journey as evidence of his courage rather than his weakness. Chloe learned that her capacity to grieve deeply was proof of her capacity to love deeply. Isaiah learned that asking for help was a form of leadership, not weakness. Phoenix learned that surviving trauma made her powerful, not damaged. River learned that loving despite being hurt made her wise, not foolish. Dakota learned that healthy boundaries made her strong, not selfish. Sage learned that persistence in the face of difficulty made her extraordinary, not ordinary. Each of them discovered something that will transform how you see yourself too. The very things you've been criticizing yourself for are proof of your incredible strength. But here's what I need you to understand about recognizing your own strength. This isn't about positive thinking or pretending problems don't exist. This is about accurate thinking, seeing yourself clearly instead of through the distorted lens of self-criticism and comparison. You are not weak because you struggle. You are strong because you continue to engage with life despite struggle. You are not broken because you feel things deeply. You are whole because you allow yourself to experience the full range of human emotion. You are not failing because you need help. You are succeeding because you're smart enough to use every resource available to you. So, here's what I want you to do right now. Look back at these 7 signs. Which ones do you recognize in yourself? I'm willing to bet you demonstrate most of them, even if you've never thought of them as signs of strength before. Take a moment to appreciate yourself for these qualities. Not because you need an ego boost, but because accurate self-perception is essential for continued growth and well-being. Write down specific examples of how you've demonstrated these signs of strength in your own life. When have you shown up, even when you didn't feel like it? When have you asked for help despite feeling vulnerable? What have you survived that once felt impossible? How have you continued to love despite being hurt? When have you taken responsibility without taking blame? How are you still here, still trying, still believing in better days? These aren't just questions, they're evidence. Evidence of your resilience, your courage, your wisdom, and your power. What would your life look like if you truly understood how strong you are? How would you show up differently if you recognized your struggles as proof of your strength rather than evidence of your weakness? What would you attempt if you trusted your ability to handle whatever outcome occurs? How would you treat yourself if you saw yourself the way you see other people who demonstrate the same qualities you possess? Think about that vision. That self-compassionate, confident, resilient person already exists. It's you. You just needed someone to point out what was already there. Remember, strength isn't about being invulnerable. It's about being vulnerable and continuing to show up anyway. It's about being human and choosing to keep growing anyway. It's about being imperfect and continuing to love anyway. You've got this. You've always had this. You just need to learn how to see it. Your strength isn't hidden because it's not there. Your strength is hidden because you've been looking for it in all the wrong places. Stop looking for strength in the absence of struggle. Start seeing strength in how you move through struggle. Stop looking for strength in never needing help. Start seeing strength in your wisdom to ask for support. Stop looking for strength in never feeling pain. Start seeing strength in your courage to feel everything. You are so much stronger than you think. And now you know how to see it. If this video helped you recognize your own hidden strength, I want to hear about it in the comments below. Share which sign resonated with you most. Tell us about a time you demonstrated strength without recognizing it. Let us know how this new perspective changes how you see yourself. Your story could be exactly what someone else needs to hear to recognize their own power. And here's something important. If you found value in this message, please share this video. There are millions of people who need to hear this, who are walking around thinking they're weak when they're incredibly strong. Your share could be the moment someone realizes their worth. Your recommendation could change someone's entire relationship with them. Hit that share button and spread this message to anyone who needs to see their own strength more clearly. And if you want more content that helps you recognize your power and build unshakable confidence, subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. Next week, I'm revealing the advanced psychological techniques that Navy SEALs use to maintain mental strength under extreme pressure. Until then, remember this. You are not the story your inner critic talks about you. You are not the sum of your mistakes and struggles. You are not weak because life has been hard. You are a warrior who has been forged by fire. You are a survivor who has proven your resilience repeatedly. You are stronger than your strongest storm, braver than your biggest fear, and more powerful than any circumstance. The world needs your strength, even if you can't see it yet. Especially if you can't see it yet. Keep showing up, keep feeling, keep asking for help, keep surviving, keep loving. Keep taking responsibility, keep going. You've got this, hidden warrior. Your strength has been there all along. Now you know where to find it.